Our scripture reading this morning is taken from St. John's 12th chapter, the 44th through the 50th verse. And I ask that you be with me. John 12th chapter, 44th through the 50th verse. And Jesus cried and said, "He that believeth on me, believeth not on me, but on him that sent me. And he that seeth me, seeth him that sent me. I am a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me shall not abide in darkness. And if any man heareth my words and believe not, I judge him not. For I come not to judge the world, but to save the world. He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me. He gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I shall speak. And I know that his commandment is life everlasting. Whatsoever I speak, therefore, even as the Father said unto me, so I speak. And thus is the scripture reading of John 12th chapter, 44th through the 50th verse. Again, I say unto you, good morning. Now, this scripture says a lot about Jesus' mission and his purpose. First of all, let us look back on this first verse where it says that Jesus cried and said. Now, when Jesus cried, doesn't mean that he was crying tears, but that he was speaking in a loud voice, loud enough to get the attention of those that had gathered about him. And mothers, we know and have experienced when we are trying to get the attention of our children. When they are not listening, we have a tendency or a habit to speak in a loud voice. When we raise our voice, it seems to get their attention. And so this is what Jesus was doing, not crying tears, but speaking in a loud voice so that he would get the attention of those that were probably distracted by something else. And he went on to say, he that believeth on me, believeth not on me, but he that sent me. In other words, Jesus was saying that he came not of his own accord, but the God Spirit in him sent him. And in the God consciousness of the God Spirit within him, this physical embodiment came for a purpose, that the word be spoken. And Jesus said unto the multitude, to the people, I have come as a light into the world. And you know, a part of our teachings and my speaking is that I always affirm you are the light. I am the light of God's consciousness, God's spirit, God's power. And Jesus went on to say, who that believeth not in the man himself, but the consciousness that was in the man, shall not abide in darkness, for the consciousness and the spirit that was in the man, Jesus, was that of light. And we know that light overrules the darkness. Jesus went on to say that he that believeth, or he that hears my words and believeth not, Jesus said, I came not to judge, but to save. Now, Jesus was also speaking to the crowd when he said to those that the word that he spoke is the word that shall judge you, as scripture says in the last day. The word that he spoke is the word that will judge us in the last day. And Jesus went on to say that he speak not of himself. Jesus went on to say, I speak not of myself, but the Father which has sent me. Scripture states that Jesus said that the Father gave him a commandment as to what he should say and what he should speak. Jesus' teachings was not that he came of his own accord, but of the Spirit or the God in him, that consciousness. He came as a representative, speaking, teaching the truth of this consciousness, of this spirit that is within you and I, just as it was in the man Jesus. And Jesus taught that the commandment is life everlasting. And he went on to say, whatever I speak, therefore, even as the Father has said it unto me, are the things that I speak to you. In other words, all the teachings that we have heard and know about Jesus, the man, it was not of his own accord, but the Father or the God within him. And just as this consciousness, this spirit, this light and life was in the man Jesus, so it is within you and I. But we must be able to turn within and to seek that consciousness, that light that is within us. We're not going to find it out in the world, only within us. Now, when Jesus said that he came not to judge the world, but that he came to save the world. But saving the world was not by his own doing, by the teachings, by the truth that he brought would save you and I. But we must listen and internalize the things that the man Jesus spoke. And as scripture says, Jesus said, as he cried out, "He that believeth on me, believeth not on me, but on him that sent me." God. You heard me say many times that your number one priority should always be God, not man. We have to transcend the physical appearances of man and look beyond and behold the Christ or the light that is responsible. It is the light, the Christ, the consciousness, and the Spirit of God that has embodied in physical form and is speaking through physical form. Now, let us understand this. When Jesus said that one shall be judged by the word of truth is what Jesus was speaking about. I want you to understand this. The word of truth that Jesus was speaking about is that spirit and consciousness of God. It's everywhere. It permeates the very air that we breathe. This truth permeates every thought, every feeling, and every emotion that we experience. And this truth that permeates everything that we are and everything that we experience is that which will judge us. No man can righteously judge us. Only the truth can judge us. And that is why Jesus said, "I judge no man," because Jesus has not the authority to judge. It's truth that judges us all. It's the things that we think, the words that we speak, and the actions that we perform that judges us. And let me just clear up something here. A lot of folks misunderstand the teachings, what scripture is saying. It's not the last day of your life that you will be judged. It's every day, every moment of your life that you will be judged. So don't think that you can do all that you want to do and say all that you want to say, and then when the time comes for you to make your transition, that you will be judged. Every moment of your life, we are being judged by what we think, what we feel, what we speak, and what we do right now. What we think and how we feel will determine our life the next second or minute from now. It was shared with me many, many years ago that if you want to know what your future is going to be like, then be aware of what it is that you're thinking right now. Because what you're thinking right now judges the next second of your future or of your life. Not tomorrow, not next week, but the next second, next minute of your life, the next day of your life. Truth permeates the very air that we breathe. Truth is all around us. We cannot escape truth. We cannot hide from it. We cannot pretend that it does not exist or that it does not apply to us. Everything that there is, seen and unseen, is God's truth. There is no escaping God's truth. It's everywhere. And one of the most profound things about this truth that we cannot escape, it's right there within you. It has always been there within you. So truth is affecting you first from within before it manifests out in your outer world. Did not the master teacher teach that the kingdom of heaven is within you? And if the kingdom of heaven be within you, so is God. And if God be within you, then where is truth? God is the truth of your being. And that which you see in the mirror is a manifestation of that truth that is within you. Jesus spoke it plainly. He that believeth on me, believeth not on me, but he that hath sent me, God. Jesus, just as you and I, was a manifestation and a demonstration of that Godhead. The only difference in Jesus and you and I is that Jesus was a much more enlightened soul. He had reached a certain state of enlightenment where he knew his oneness with God, with ultimate reality, with consciousness. Jesus knew. We are on the path to get to that state. And as I've said so many times in the past, and many times I will say in days to come, there are 3 levels on this spiritual path. The first one is belief, believing. The second one is faith, trusting that it will, or trusting that it is. And the third and final is knowing. When you get to that state of consciousness wherein you know, belief and faith fall to the wayside. You're at that higher state of consciousness that can be experienced in human form. You know. You see, when you know something, it cannot be taken away from you. It cannot be shaken. It is solid. You can stand on this foundation because you know. It's just like you know that 1 + 1 is 2. No one can take that away from you. No one can disprove that. And so it is. You attain that consciousness of knowing that you are one with God. You have always been one with God, and you will always be. There is no separation. Only in our thinking, as we experience out of the worldly things outside of ourselves, that seems to fluctuate in so many different ways, that we come to accept or believe God cannot be with me, God cannot be in me because my life is in such turmoil. Well, if your life is in turmoil, then it is what you have created. It is what you have drawn or attracted to you by the misuse of that God consciousness, God power I am within you. That is the purpose of Jesus coming. That is the purpose of all the great enlightened souls coming. To teach us, to show us, and to help us to know where to find that truth that will make us free. And as you look out at the world today, with all the stuff, the chaos, the confusion, the destruction, and all the negative energies that are going on in the world, you might ask, well, where is God? God is where he has always been and where he will always be. And you have heard the old saying, if you're not a part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. We must turn within and access that kingdom that is within us, that God consciousness, that God spirit, and the God power. You're not going to find it out in the world unless you bring it forth from within you and project it out into the world. You know, I always tell my congregants that when you come to church, people come to church looking for God. People come to church seeking to God, wanting to know more about God. But I tell my congregants, when you come to church, you bring God with you. When you come to church, you bring God with you. We as the ministers and the pastors can only tell you, show you how to turn within and experience that God that is within you. But if you're not willing to listen, if you're not willing to be open and receptive, you will continue to search and seek outside of yourselves, and it will be a long time in knowing the God that has always been there within. I just want to share before I close, and many of you have heard this story many times, and I like to look back over it and remind myself that in my early years, I was in search of God as a news boy, delivering Sunday papers, probably about 13 or 14 years old at that time. One Sunday morning, the headlines on the Sunday paper said, "God is dead." And that was the day I stopped delivering newspaper. And I went home crying to my mother, and my mother said, "Boy, what's wrong with you?" I said, "God is dead." And she looked at me, she said, "Well, who told you God is dead?" I said, "Mom, it's all on the newspaper." And she said, "Well, where is the newspaper?" I said, "I left it on the corner. I wouldn't even deliver papers. What was the use? God was dead. No use in living." Well, as time went on, something said within me, don't accept, don't believe. And I continued to search. And I was led many different ways, different ways. I even, as some of you might have known, I told you the story. I took my mother's last $20 because we were poor. My mother sent me to the store with the last $20 to get a loaf of bread. And on the way to the store, there was something in my head said, "You got $20. Take that $20 and go to New York. There's a man in New York that can tell you about God, help you find God." Well, on the way to the store, I made a beeline to the bus station, took my mother's last $20 and got me a one-way ticket to New York. I was in search of God. Didn't think about my brothers and sisters that didn't have food. My only thing was that if I could find God, God would bless me and I would be able to go back and feed my family. But when I got to New York, the man that I was looking for was out of the country. And I said to myself, what will I do now? Well, to make a long story short, I stayed in New York probably 6, 7 months, working hard jobs, getting enough money, and spend my nights at the YMCA. I think it was $1.25 a night. After about 6 months, I decided I had to come back home. Couldn't find God. But I made it a promise, made it a purpose that when I got back to Richmond, I went to the store and got a loaf of bread, that which my mother had sent me to get 6 months earlier. And I walked into my mother's house. My mother looked at me, said, "Boy, where have you been with my $20? I sent you to the store to get a loaf of bread." And I said, "Mom, here's the bread. But I took your money and I went to New York because I was trying to find God." She said, "I got your God." But I came to realize that I found God at the very place where I started, within myself. And so now, no longer had I searched for God outside of myself. I turned within and I found that which I was seeking. And the blessings that God has bestowed upon me is beyond human understanding. Once the windows of abundance has been opened to you, once that faucet has been opened, it just keeps right on coming. Your good, as always, and will always be within you. For the master teacher Jesus taught, the kingdom is within you, not out in the world. It is within you. And when you open up that door within you, that kingdom, it is through the instrumentality and the instruments of the world that your good will come. God will bless you through other people, other sources. For you must always know and understand that just as God is in you and I, God is in every man, woman, and child. And when you activate that consciousness within you, it affects everything in and of the world. Know that what you bless blesses you in return. It is the consciousness, the spirit, the life, and the light of God. We are all one. And so it is. As Jesus said, he who has seen me has truly seen him that has sent me. You and I will all manifestations and expressions of God. And if God be within us, as God is, so is the power, so is the light and the light. God bless. Namaste.